All right, so if the average person works 30 years and they invest just $50 per week for that 30 years, they would end up with $448,317. Now, what if you say, well, I don't want to be working for 30 years, or I want to be able to retire earlier? Well, you can absolutely reduce that number, and let's do 20 years, for example, by increasing the payments that you are contributing and investing. So if we were to increase this to something like, let's just say $250 a week, which is more or less $1,000 a month, in 20 years, you'd have $780,000. If you were to stick with the original 30 years, but increase the payments to $250 a week, and when I say payments, I should be saying investments, you would have a $2.2 million portfolio. So there's a lot of different parameters you can play around with. For me, my goal is to work as little as possible. My wife and I, we contribute $721 to our investments, which is a third of our gross income. And so if we do 15 years, 10% return, $721 per week, that would take us to 1.2 million. So that's really our goal. And the way that we're trying to get there is by, yes, investing for a shorter time period, but increasing a significantly higher percentage of our income than kind of what is typically advised or kind of traditionally done. For most people, they invest between 5 and 10% of their income. I mean, a lot of people do 0%, but if you're doing, 10, 15, 20%, there's nothing stopping you from doing 15, 20, 25, 30, 40%, whatever that might be. And the goal is that the higher percentage of your income that you're able to invest, the quicker you'll reach your financial goals. But then also the lower amount that you're living on in terms of your lifestyle, which means that you're able to retire earlier because your expenses are lower. So for us, we assume that about a third of our income goes to taxes, a third goes to investments, and we're living on a third of our gross income. And so by doing that math, that means that we'd be able to live off of a third of what we make annually, which just makes our investment goals that much more kind of in reach because we live a pretty modest lifestyle. So all of this is just numbers and kind of playing around with different timelines, different amounts that you're investing. In terms of the 10% return, that is what the S&P 500 has returned historically for the last 100 years. The S&P 500 is the largest 500 companies in the US. And so by investing in the S&P 500, you're not only investing in the 500 largest US companies, but they're really international companies in a way. When you think about companies like Apple and Microsoft that have global footprints of stores and employees and products, and their software is used all over the world. So that's really what you're investing in. A lot of people are being directed to invest in much more conservative products that earn 2, 3, or 4% per year. And you have to think about who's making the difference. And it's either your investment manager or it's either your bank. There's actually a statistic from Morningstar that said that over 50% of portfolio managers of mutual funds in the US, only 50% actually invest in their own mutual funds. The other half don't have even a single cent in there. And the reason for that is because when you get a mutual fund that returns a 4% annual return, the mutual fund is investing in more aggressive investments like the S&P 500, but then the company and the fund manager and the advisor are all taking a cut and they're eating into your investments. And so by investing yourself into the S&P 500, you are going directly to the source compared to when you buy even bank products like GICs, that offer a lower rate. The bank's making the difference on that. They're investing your money for you. They're loaning it out. They're giving you your 5%. You're happy. They're keeping the difference. For some people that works and they're fine with that. But in order to expedite reaching your financial goals, you do have to be aggressive with your investments. And by aggressive, I mean open to fluctuation. Because if we look at the S&P 500, here we can see the COVID dip. it did dip significantly, but then it went up, and then it dipped again, and then it went up. And if you look at this chart for the last 100 years, that's what you see. And so you will experience volatility of the markets going up and down, but you're not losing money every time the market drops unless you actually sell and lock in your loss. If you purchased investments here and then it goes up and then it goes down and goes up, you're not actually locking in any loss or gain until 15, 20, 30 years down the road when the markets are significantly up, because over the last 100 years, that is what happens. Now, obviously, the future or the historical returns are not a guarantee for the future, but it's the best indicator that we have of what will happen in the future. If you have no idea how to get started investing, check out the link in my bio. I have a very practical guide that walks you through step by step from the differences between TFSAs and RSPs, talking about different brokerages and how to actually get set up, buying investments, what particular investments to buy. And I pull back the curtain and show you exactly what I'm invested in. And unlike those mutual fund managers that are advising people to invest in certain things and they themselves are not even invested in those investments.